That's a great question. Bribes, social pressure, shaming, humiliation, coercion, emotional manipulation, gaslighting, relentless advertising campaigns, jingles, celebrity endorsements, really anything that works. We have an abusive relationship with the public now, so everything is their fault. If you get sick, it's your fault. If you get hurt from the vaccine, it's your fault.
Love it.
If lockdowns lead to more domestic abuse cases, besides loss of jobs, livelihood, and depression, it's your fault. So for the vaccine hesitant, we've moved on to threats. We've threatened to take their jobs and their livelihoods away, taking their freedoms away, obviously, and soon with some legislation, we'll be threatening to take their children away as well. And any resistance or even innocent questions should be met with hostility and more of the same. So, try to be kind, but also don't take no for an answer. Next question, please.
It's like you're in an abusive relationship with a sociopathic, narcissistic, insane, negative Nancy. That's the relationship that you have between you and your government. Welcome back, beautiful and amazing human beings. This is Luke Rudowski of WeAreChange.org. A lot of crazy news to get into, especially out of Canada, where admittedly the military there is conducting some very immoral, dastardly acts against its citizenry. There's also a shocking admission by the chief medical officer of Alberta. We're going to get into that, plus a lot more with our troubled neighbors to the north that seem to love their jackboot. But before we get into that, plus a lot more, the clip that we played in the beginning of this broadcast is by Greg Wycliffe. I butchered his name, Wycliffe, and we thought his video was definitely very honest and spot on with seeing the bigger picture of what the government is actually doing here. If you want to watch more of his videos, we will be linking his channel down in the description below. Now, just jumping right into it, the Biden administration has announced new initiatives to regulate, control, and of course, tax individuals, a part of their supposed tax the rich plan, which starts with tracking and databasing every $600 transaction. We're also finding out under new proposals by the Biden administration that actually more multinational corporations would actually pay no tax at all, which would increase the already number of large corporations in the United States that don't pay a penny in taxes. As the Biden administration has been saying that everyone needs to chip in more, pay more for their, quote, equity efforts, when in reality we know most of that money's going to the military-industrial complex. Most of that money's going to go towards continuing one of the worst humanitarian crises in the world right now in Yemen, as of course mass starvation, lack of clean drinking water, and lack of common medicines is literally ending the lives of millions of Yemenis, all because of the very close-knit relationship that the United States has with Saudi Arabia. And along with that Saudi coalition, they have launched a bombing and embargo campaign of Yemen, which arguably is creating the worst amount of human suffering on the face of the earth right now. This, as moments from now, the Biden administration will be meeting with Saudi officials to see how they will continue this coalition and assault on innocent life. Where else is your hard-earned money going to when you pay taxes? Well, also the intelligence agencies that usually have a blank check could do whatever they want, including launch plans in order to kidnap and assassinate journalists like Julian Assange, as we're finding out from incredible reporting from Yahoo News that detailed a plan during Trump's presidency by Mike Pompeo about how the CIA literally called for the planned kidnapping and assassination of Julian Assange. They were calling for this as, of course, there was teams of people appearing outside of the Ecuadorian embassy in London in 2018, which WikiLeaks videotaped and correctly called out as, quote, grab teams that were positioned outside of the embassy when these plans were put forward. Luckily, this absolutely evil and illegal plan did not go through because of Donald Trump's White House lawyers, but this shows you how absolutely evil the government could be when it comes to trying to stop legitimate journalism, legitimate reporting that previously has been celebrated like the Pentagon Papers. Now it's vilified by the mainstream media as it looks like a large swath of the media is working with these intelligence agencies, pushing a lot of government-convenient narratives, emotional psychological propaganda, while also getting disproportionately favor play on big tech social media, which we also have to admit here have ties to intelligence agencies. Big tech social media companies like Instagram and Facebook that go out of their way to hurt independent media like myself and others. They make sure our viewership goes down, our reach is limited, our opinions are censored, while of course the mainstream media is promoted as knowingly their carefully crafted algorithm that prevents my voice and other voices from being heard literally prioritize a set of information that is wreaking havoc and destroying human life. Their careful curation of the newsfeed, of their timelines, is creating real-life human harm, and institutions like Facebook and Instagram know this. They've done studies on this. They've done research on this. They know that what they do, the carefully crafted package that they give to you and your children, they know it is hurting children and everyone else, and they still continue to do it. And when you look at the levels of self-harm, of depression, of psychological disorders, especially for young children that are inundated with their cell phones in their hand at a very young age, the numbers are astronomical and shocking. If we really cared about human health, we would actually have a real discussion about this, but we don't. And because of this deliberate destruction of mental health that our society is being wrecked with, we wanted to remind you to sign up on our email list. Because of the huge wave of censorship, one of the only real ways to actually reach out and still talk to you in a way that can't be taken away from us is through emails. It's easy, it's quick, it's convenient. Just put your email address in there, confirm that you signed up in there. It's free. And just like we did last week, we routinely send out free videos from LukeUncensored.com, which is our own very platform where we get to do whatever we want. You not only get exclusive content, but exclusive access to gear and merchandise, which will only be available to our members very soon. Only available to members with no profit to us. And if you haven't signed up yet, you should definitely sign up right now. The price of upkeeping this platform is going up, so prices will rise soon as well. And on LukeUncensored.com, I strive to give you the most important, most valuable piece of information that I can share privately between you and me, away, of course, from the big censors, where we could actually talk about what's going on from an honest and real perspective. And of course, we have a lot more exciting things coming to this very specific platform. Every new video we do, and we do a lot of them, are also, of course, emailed every single day to the people on our email list. So again, sign up on that email list. Check out LukeUncensored.com. Now, just moments ago, a very surprising report just came out of Canada highlighting some very troubling developments when it comes to psychological propaganda efforts used by the Canadian military specifically for this larger sickness that has been spreading around the world since last year. Now, you might be asking yourself, why is the military involved in propaganda techniques against its own citizens when it comes to a global sickness? Well, there's a lot of implications. We're going to answer that question in just a little bit. But let's get to the details here. As we're finding out that the Canadian Joint Chief Operating Command devised a plan for psychological operations against its citizens for propaganda techniques which were similarly deployed during the Afghanistan war. You know, the same Afghanistan war that was an absolute travesty of injustice, that created a destructive geopolitical state, that siphoned off God knows how much actual real money to the military-industrial complex in exchange for achieving nothing but havoc, chaos, and the ending of countless lives for absolutely no reason at all, while making the situation that much worse for everyone else involved. You know, that Afghanistan war that needed propaganda efforts by the government and the military to make sure that their swindling of the population worked. Yes, those same efforts those same individuals are in charge of propaganda efforts surrounding the sickness. As we have this article by the National Post that reads, Canadian military leaders saw the sickness as a unique opportunity to test out propaganda techniques on an unsuspecting public, a newly released Canadian Force report concludes, going on and saying the propaganda plan was developed and put in place in April 2020 with the campaign that called for, quote, shaping and exploiting information, specifically needed to, quote, head off civil disobedience by Canadians and to bolster the government's messaging around the sickness. Now, as I said before, even 15 years ago, the war on terror was going to turn on a war on the general public, on the people. And this is one perfect example of this. But the same criminal propagandists that literally launched efforts for Afghanis to love their invaders have launched their own efforts, and there's even separate efforts, including how the Canadian Forces intelligence officers were the ones culling information from public social media accounts. And now we have the admission that this propaganda plan was literally pushed forward and approved and took part in Canada before, of course, being shut down for obvious huge conflict of interest problems and other very large implications here. Now, this is a program that we know about, but I think it's very certain to say that there's other programs, especially here in the United States, that we don't even hear about, that we don't even know about. I'm going to be talking about that in just a little bit. And when you look at military propaganda, this is specifically propaganda to take over populations, to subjugate populations, to take over them, to control them. So there won't be any resistance against the new form of government that is made that they want no resistance to at all. If we look at historical records of the military using propaganda, it's also used to dehumanize and create hatred towards a supposed enemy. And when you look at that definition and understanding of this and understand that the Canadian military and government were working hand in hand with these larger efforts against their own citizenry, a lot of things start to make sense with how the events have been unfolding in Canada, in Australia, in some parts of the United States, in the United Kingdom, in Israel, and many other places around the world that had an absolutely heavy-handed, draconian, backwards approach towards a sickness. Again, their propaganda efforts were successful in Afghanistan, and look at the absolute havoc and the situation that caused. There's a reason why we need transparency and accountability, and we have very little of it, which signals more troubling signs ahead. But when you view everything as a war, as a conflict, as something to get conquered and taken over, all lies and immoral actions are justified, as we have more shocking announcements now from the Chief Medical Officer of Alberta that just publicly announced that if someone feels sick, didn't get tested, that they are officially counted as a person who has got the sickness that the government has been fear-mongering about from the very beginning of all this. And if they're counting numbers like this, what's the true reality of what's happening here? Well, of course, it's very hard to find out. But these are admissions from even the Chief Medical Officer of Alberta that said this without even any hesitation. And if this is the case, if this is how they're officially counting the numbers are absolutely in question here, which they should be. By the way, we did a full episode on LukeUncensored.com about the numbers just a few days ago. Definitely check that out if you haven't yet. And in hindsight, when looking at this sickness, this has been a sickness that many politicians have used as an opportunity to utterly destroy people's personal liberties, their freedoms, their economic ability to thrive and survive, their psychological well-being, essentially robbing them of any kind of normal existence that they previously had before. The video that you're seeing right now is a sped-up 16-second segment of the people in line in Australia, specifically in Melbourne. And these people aren't waiting for tests. They aren't waiting to have a procedure. They're literally waiting outside a hunger relief charity that's being able to provide people food when they can't get it themselves. All of this as the billionaire multinational corporate globalist class is richer than ever. They're making more money than they ever did in recorded human history. Their influence with our politicians is growing, and they're becoming more powerful by the day. And a lot of that happened because of the propaganda. The propaganda that lied to people, misinformed them, spread fake news, used psychological, emotional trauma techniques in order to spread fear, emotional imbalance, while attacking critical thinking and any form of questioning, as perfectly exemplified by the intro video that we started off this broadcast with. In the United States, in 2013, during the Obama administration, for some reason, the government then repealed a propaganda ban, a law that prevented the U.S. government from delivering propaganda to American audiences. And in 2013, a lot of people wondered, why is the Obama administration doing this? I think in hindsight, with everything that's happening right now, a lot of this is definitely contextualized in many different ways. If you don't think there's any propaganda efforts underway right now, you're not paying attention, and you better wake up to it before you become a victim of it. That's my personal take on it. If you think I'm wrong, let me know why in the comment section below. What kind of larger propaganda efforts are happening right now? Well, what do you think? Let me know down in the comment section below. If you disliked this video, click dislike. If you liked it, click like. But most importantly, if you found it useful, share it with your friends and family members. And because you do, I'm still here. Hope to see you guys later on today on LukeUncensored.com. I love you. Stay tuned for more here on WeAreChange.org.